Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the United Kingdom. We're going to talk about the long-range missiles, of course, and we have information according to The Sun that Ukraine has still not received permission to strike Russian territory with British Storm Shadow cruise missiles. The publication noticed that the US continues to block the use of British missiles, despite the fact that through unofficial channels it has given the go-ahead for the use of the own ATACMS systems to carry out limited strikes deep into Russian territory. The sources are saying that UK and France can't approve the use of their cruise missiles by Ukraine because they're built from US parts and America has to approve first. It's kind of funny to see that none of the Western countries can move an inch without the US, even if they wanted to. As for the United States of America, of course, we have some comments and some information from this country as well. The White House does not confirm that Ukraine has allowed to use American long-range ATACMS missiles to strike Russia. And of course, let's discuss Germany, because we have several reports from this country as well. As for Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, still hesitating. You know that when talking about Macron, when talking about Biden and the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, they have no doubts. They want to approve, they want to allow Ukrainians to attack deep inside of Russia. But as for Germany, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is coming under growing pressure to drop his resistance to sending Taurus cruise missiles to Ukraine after the US allowed Kiev limited use of its ATACMS weapons for strike inside Russia. Very interesting whether Olaf Scholz is able to stand on his position, or he will give up and he will allow the Ukrainians to use Taurus to attack deep inside of Russia. Taurus are very powerful missiles. They can hit the targets within 500 kilometers distance, which is very huge. And with these missiles, the Ukrainians will be able to begin bombing the Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation. And of course, we continue receiving updates from the European Union. And according to information we have, deep strikes with European Union weapons to be discussed today. So today, on the 19th of November, everything will be discussed. Borrell said that he initially supported lifting restrictions on Western long-range weapon strikes deep into Russia. This issue will be discussed today at the European Union Foreign Minister Council. So today is a very important day. And as for Russia, of course, today the Russians also made their own steps about the situation. And today, the President of Russian Federation, Putin, approved the updated nuclear doctrine. The most important thing from the new doctrine is the following: aggression against the Russian Federation and its allies by a non-nuclear country with the support of a nuclear state will be considered as a joint attack. So this is the most important statement. I'll translate to you. If Ukraine begin attacking the territory of Russia with long-range missiles deep inside of territory of Russia, and this will be considered by Russia as a joint attack, let's say with the United States of America, with the United Kingdom, with Germany and so on, and Russians will be able to, of course, to react and to first, the minimal thing that the Russians are able to do is to send weapon, for example, in the Middle East, to begin attacking the Western ships in the sea and in the ocean. And the maximum thing that the Russians are able to do is to begin using nuclear weapons. So let's wait. Very important day, the 19th of November, decisive day, and this is most likely something like a turning point in the conflict. Now let's begin with the line of combat contact, and first we're going to talk about the course direction. And today we got two important statements. First of all, according to information we have, the Russians managed to destroy the Ukrainian forces that were trapped and blocked in this Olgovsky forest. At least this information was provided by two resources, by two mappers, like pro-Russian mappers and by neutral mappers. But as for the official statement of the Group of Forces North, they reported today in the morning of the 19th of November, and they stated that the clashes and the cleaning operation is still continue in the territory of the forest. So not everything, not the entire this forest was cleaned from by the Russians, and there are still clashes. As for the changes on the ground, we have reported Ukrainians managed to concentrate forces and to counterattack the Russian position positions in the village of Plyokhova. And as a result of counter-offensive operation, the Ukrainians managed to restore control over 60-70% of the settlement and to restore control over the forest that located in the northeastern part of the settlement. The Russians controlled just the southeastern part of this village. So this is the situation. I'll remind you that several days ago, most of the mappers have adjusted their maps in Plyokhova in Russian favor based on the videos that was published by the Ukrainians. And now we start receiving reports that Ukrainians counterattacked and their counteroffensive was pretty successful. Now let's move to the Kupiansk direction. We have very important statements. The Russians are saying that they managed to secure completely the northeastern part of Kupiansk. Most of attacks of the armored forces of Ukraine were repelled. The Russians managed to bring the significant number of forces to dig in deeper and to create a stable let's say bridgehead before further advances in the southern and the western direction of Kupiansk itself. Zelensky also visited Kupiansk yesterday. He came to the city and he awarded different soldiers and gave some orders and just inspected the situation on the ground to understand what is going to happen next and whether the Ukrainian soldiers are able to hold their lines as long as possible. Now let's move further. Now let's talk about the Chasiv Yar direction, because from this area we also receive very important updates, and according to information we have, this morning the Russians began assault of the industrial zone of the heart of the Chasiv Yar defense, the Chasiv Yar citadel. Russian army began the assaults to refractory plants in the center of Chasiv Yar. So this territory, the Russians are storming this territory with the purpose to break the Ukrainian defense completely. As for different mappers, today we got reports that the Russians managed to dig in deeper in the western part of Kalinovka and to get as close as possible to the heart of Chasiv Yar from the northeastern direction. As for the city of Tatarets, the sources are saying that the Russians are getting closer and closer to the central mine and to the tericon of this area, and most likely during this week the first clashes, the first attempts of the Russian forces to storm this strategical point is going to start. Now let's talk about the Kurakhova direction, because the most important and the majority of updates are coming exactly from this area. As for the city of Kurakhova itself, the settlement is under very heavy fire. The Russians established complete control over the city with a significant number of reconnaissance drones. The problem is that the city of Kurakhova is already located in something like a pocket, artillery pocket. The Russians semi-encircled the settlement from the north, from the east, and from the south. And now the Russians have no problems to send any number of drones to fly above the settlement and to destroy everything that comes and inside of this territory. And during the previous 24 hours, during the previous night, we got a significant number of videos of how the Russians were FPV droning the Ukrainian vehicles, Ukrainian infantry, Ukrainian tanks, just Ukrainian positions with drones, and we see no resistance from the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainians are trying to use electronic warfare equipment, but seems to me it doesn't work. Furthermore, the Russians reported that they managed to cross the railways, the railways between the village of Berestki and Nova Ilinka, and the clashes for the central part of Berestki has begun. Most likely today or tomorrow the settlement would be cleared by the Russians and the Ukrainians will be forced to fall back to the village of Stare Terny. Now let's talk about the Uspenovka, the main stronghold in the southern part. The stronghold is located on the intersections of different roads, and during the previous 24 hours the Russians managed to improve their positions significantly. This information was recorded by neutral mappers. Let's compare the map to understand how much the Russians managed to advance. This is the situation by the end of the 18th of November, and this is by the beginning of 19th. The Russians managed to take under control the three lines. These three lines, and to get closer to the village of Konstantinopolska. The Russians managed to improve their positions further in the northern direction in the village of Trudova, and now the Russians control around 40% of the settlement. The Russians managed to take under control and to secure the forest to the south of Yelizavetovka, and now the Russians control around 50% of this of the forest, and they're moving further in the direction of the road between Veselый Gай and Yelizavetovka. Furthermore, the Russians managed to take under control completely the farms that located in the southeastern part of Yelizavetovka itself. So this is the progress from in the southern direction. Also, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the northern direction of the river of Sakhia Yali and to take under control the significant number of Ukrainian fortifications and positions in the fields. Once again, let's take a look at the changes. This is the by the end of the 18th of November. This is by the beginning of the 19th of November. In the northern direction, this is by the end of the 18th of November, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 19th of November. Obviously, the Ukrainians don't have much time. Obviously, they don't have time at all. Those Ukrainian soldiers and units that managed to escape the cauldron managed to do this, and those who were left behind most likely will not be able to escape the encirclement, and let's say this is just a matter of several days. Most likely by the end of this week, the situation and the map will look completely different. Most likely the villages like Yelizavetovka, Ilinka and Veselый Gai would be captured by the Russians during this week. And that's it for this video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.